I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dignity and equity, liberty and justice for all.
The Pulse publicly acknowledges that we are on the traditional lands of the Muncie, Esopus, Lenape people. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 forced the people to relocate. Why is my thing updating? Relocate to inhospitable territory far from the bountiful valley mountains that we inhabit today. And the village further acknowledges that much of the physical structure of our village and town was built by enslaved Africans who labored as the property of their owners until 1827 on this very land. And we acknowledge and honor the contributions, resilience, and accomplishments of the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and people of color who have overcome historic injustice to inform our past and inspire our future. And the Village of New Paltz encourages everyone to learn more about the contributions and sacrifices made by the Indigenous people and enslaved Africans by visiting the sites that are on our agendas in minutes. And if you have any resources that should be added, please contact us. Thanks.
Norm, 1 second. Okay, we need to add a couple of things to the consent agenda. Under 2, I'd like to add B. This is approval for the monster sprint on Halloween. Also, 2C, historic Huguenot Street trick or treating and after party, and 4E, this is related to the completion of the pickleball basketball courts on Elting in front of St. Joe's. And 4D, this is payment related to the water main replacement project on North and South Chestnut Street. And item 6, authorize the superintendent of the DPW to hire Precision Upkeep to remove and install a new valve on the north clarifier of the sewage plant, cost of $6,000. And number 7 was also just added. That's an authorization from the clerk's office regarding the records management and records destruction project that our village clerk is legally responsible for. And then within the business agenda, we have item number 2, that's the resolution related to the disposal of these records, and then also creating additional payment for staff to come in separately and perform those tasks. And that was it as far as changes or additions to both the consent agenda and the business agenda. I move the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
And I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
In favor for both.
Aye.
And then I move the business agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then let's move to announcements. Do you want to start with announcements, Alex?
I'll kick it over to Stana.
Okay, Stana.
If you're up for it.
All right. First of all, I'd like to apologize to everybody for not being there in person, but you don't want my cooties. I have a bad case of COVID. I am doing a little better because of Paxlovid. All right. So a few things to announce. First of all, we still need volunteers, and at the next meeting, I will say again specifically how many we need for each one, because I'd like to do this for brevity. I'm going to remind everybody to please donate to Family of Woodstock here in New Paltz, which is Family of New Paltz. They always need feminine hygiene products, personal care items, food, and the like. The Turkey Trot registration is open. The Turkey Trot is on Thanksgiving morning every year. This year it's November 27th. You can go to New.
Sorry, we have to have some other noise. Hi. Sorry about that.
Your announcement's very popular.
Okay, newpaltzturkeytrot.com. You can go for more information and to sign up. They also have computers for older adults, which is 55 and over, on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11:30, and you can bring your own device or use theirs. And free food fridge is always open. Please share what you can. Go to millionsofbutterflies.org for a list of do's and don'ts. And please utilize it if you need it. And finally, a member of our community had their home violated with violent language spray painted where she and her child could see. The child's name was included in the disgusting comments. And as a fellow member of this community, I want to say on the record that this is completely unacceptable and monstrous. Under no circumstances can anyone desecrate another person's home. There is never justification for this. And threatening a child is abhorrent. Knowingly vandalizing a Black woman's home is a racist act. This is not new here in the United States, even here in New York, even here in New Paltz. The fact that this was done to the former Ulster County Chief Diversity Officer, who has been working diligently for the Black community here in New Paltz and in Ulster County in numerous ways, makes it feel particularly targeted. I unequivocally denounce whoever did this and look forward to justice being served.
Thanks, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry to Essie and her family for having to endure such abhorrent, violent situation. It's truly, truly disheartening and surprising, but also not surprising.
Correct. It shouldn't happen to anyone ever. And we will call it out. We will call it what it is, and we will do the work it takes to repair our community and deal with the people who did this.
Absolutely. Alex, did you have announcements?
No, I think Donna said everything that
Okay.
needs to be said. Thank you.
I had an announcement. So when I first started on the planning board a very long time ago, the town had a process where the ethics board collects information from elected officials as well as people who are appointed to boards and commissions, just to disclose different financial holdings or ownership that they may be involved in our community. And we adopted the same type of process here in the village, and we have a disclosure form. So, there's been some grumblings on social media because that's where a lot of grumblings occur. But there's been some, and I've heard this from other people in the community, where there are those who are suggesting that elected officials may have ownership in any of the properties or projects that are being constructed in our community. So I just want to be like super transparent and disclose that I do not have any financial connections to any project whatsoever that's being constructed in this community, and I'm unaware of any elected official who does, and I'm unaware of any appointed member to a board, like a planning board or a ZBA. So, I'm technically a small landlord. I have an apartment on my property, and then I own another small 4-unit building. So you can definitely describe me as a landlord, but I wouldn't, I could can, explain to you exactly how many people on less than one hand live, because I function as a landlord and, yeah, just wanted to make sure that that was very clearly out there. Cause it's really rough when you try to serve your community and, people make suggestions that you're doing it for other unsavory reasons. So just wanted to make sure that that was disclosed publicly, even though we've disclosed it publicly before,
I'm also not a large landlord
or an investor.
at all, in anything.
I am really lucky to be co-owner of my home, and that is the only real estate I have any piece in, anywhere.
Good. Okay, then let's move over to the business agenda. So we're gonna start with
Is it public comment?
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, I'm
Public hearing.
very sorry about that. Yeah, if there's anyone from the public in person that wanted to make a comment.
Yes.
Come on up, Rebecca.
Yes. Thank you.
Do we also have anyone online?
We've got a couple people, yeah, I don't know if they actually want any comments, but.
Okay, great.
They're
Well,
all-
we'll start with her.
Okay, well, I'm very happy about the, sorry, my allergies. I'm very happy about the support of and recognition of Indigenous people, which is me. So, the reason why I came is actually to support the, speed limit proposal. I live up a hill and had to purchase a car. Thankfully, I was able to, but for the past several months, since this has been a topic for the village, I have been following a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. It has not had any effect in a neutral, in a adversarial way. I don't hold up traffic. There's enough traffic to begin with. And I really feel that considering the number of people that we've had injured over the past several years due to unsafe drivers, I'll just put it that way. But at any rate, I really support this. And I feel that being a person who has almost been hit twice by the same driver, okay, walking to work. And it was this little red sporty car. And the second time when she almost ran me over, she pulled over and stopped and came to apologize. And, there's been numerous other times where I've been very close to being hit as a pedestrian as well as a biker. And unfortunately, I have, disabilities now, but I really support this law, and I really don't think it's going to have much of an impact in an adverse manner, because we're going slow anyway. So
Yeah,
I-
thanks for that feedback.
yes, I feel like we could keep it that way.
Thank
you.
Yes.
And legislator Harmon, I see that you're at this meeting. Did you want to provide us with an update from the county?
Sure, I would be happy to.
Great.
So budget season is upon us, and it will be an especially interesting budget season given that there are so many changes at the federal level. We really do not yet know how that will trickle down to the county level. The good news is that we have resisted urgings to lower property taxes, though most of our county level revenue comes from sales tax, not property tax. But by holding steady, we've given ourselves a bit of a buffer. So we're as well positioned, I think, to weather the budgetary storms as we can be at this time. Given Rebecca's comments, I'm happy to announce that our safety for vulnerable road users legislation will come before the full body for a vote this month. I have every reason to believe that that will pass with no significant contention. And that mandates that there be at least 3 feet between a passing car and a cyclist or a pedestrian. So this seems like some pretty basic common sense legislation that we all know the good reasons to be proactive because of. Our acting county clerk, Taylor Brooks, defense costs will be covered through an outside firm and with strong support from from AG Letitia James's office, which is really good news because we know that this is going to almost certainly be protracted litigation that will go to the federal level and likely the Supreme Court. Our New Paltz Loop bus has been discontinued as of September 15th. I'm actively working on getting this reinstated. And I know this is a really, really big issue for people in just the living of everyday life. I'm paying attention to, just anecdotally who I see struggling to walk up and down Main Street more in the past couple of weeks. And I am seeing more people struggling to get up and down Main Street. So the county executive is aware, her office is aware, UCAT is aware, and now we just have to keep making our public comments as we go through the route optimization process so that we get that route back. And I feel pretty confident that we can do that. An update on housing. On October 21st, so at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the county legislature, there will be a public hearing regarding increasing the real estate tax exemption for seniors. So that will be held immediately prior to legislative session if people would like to come and make comment about that. We have a vote coming up to utilize $3,150,000 from the Housing Action Fund, specifically to aid construction of 7 affordable housing projects. Those are specifically designated as affordable, not market rate, not mixed, affordable housing units. 6 of those are in Kingston. 1 is in Pine Hill. So that's an ongoing need to diversify our locations countywide. But nonetheless, that's 7 affordable housing projects.
When you
Megan,
say affordable, like what percent of AMI?
I'd have to look because I can't remember off the top of my head what percentage of AMI, but I was gratified to see that they are not, it's not 5 units here, 10 units there. It's the entirety of those projects. Megan Sperry and I hosted an information session on IDAs and how they can and cannot be used, especially in regards to housing this past, so Monday, 2 days ago. We got some really, really good information. And I'm hoping that between that information being shared and the handout that Megan made that really outlines all of our ongoing projects, our current projects, anything that's in the pipeline in New Paltz, we can reduce some of the confusion about what funding is going to what projects and where and why. And so that I hope will be helpful. Also, I just want to point out, I don't think we can say it enough, that it's really gratifying to see the sheer volume of housing stock that we have created and are creating. And given the urgency of our need, that volume is really commendable. And that's been a joint effort between, folks at the village level, the town level, the county level, the state level. It's a tremendous amount of housing that we have created. And finally, legislator Jeff Collins and I are working on the possibility of creating a vehicle that would allow a savings account for renters that would function sort of like an escrow account, so that renters could build an account that would function like equity, so that they could use that for purchase of a home. We know things like this have been done, but we need to really study what they are and what has worked and what has not worked. And then we will be working with Dennis Doyle to figure out what we want to propose here.
I love that.
So on our agenda tonight, we have a resolution regarding the county sales tax agreement. So, this has been a topic we've discussed many times, but, our ask has to do with the way the agreement currently works when the money is, if 8%, 4% goes to the state, and then the other 4% is split county, city of Kingston, and then the other 23 towns and villages. So if the city of Kingston is getting 11.5% of that 4%, and the county is receiving a large share, currently it's I think 85.5%, and then the towns and villages, it's kind of changed because there was that like target, if there was a certain amount over revenue, then there would be some additional sharing, but it basically worked out to be about 4% of the 4% for the 23 towns and villages. But I think what's challenging for us in New Paltz is that it's not shared based on population, it's shared by assessed value. So the challenge with the way that is calculated is it excludes all of the tax exempt properties. So in the village of New Paltz, right, our most valuable property is the university. And then the university also adds a lot of bodies. So sure, my first choice, so that New Paltz, both the town and the village, would end up with more money, would be to share sales tax based on population. But could it also be done where you're looking at assessed value and then you include tax exempt properties? So that's basically the ask within our resolution. And I don't think that's like a budget decision, because it's really the same pool of money, unless you were to actually tweak how much the county was getting. But I just want to, see the county legislature at least chew on some of these ideas.
I will take that to the chair of Ways and Means. I think that's probably the best place to start that discussion in earnest.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions from my colleagues? No?
No, you covered everything. You'll probably see me at next meeting with some public comments on all of the above.
Do we have anyone else online who wants to make a public comment or have a question? If not, okay, so then we're gonna jump into our resolution. So, there
We
are
also have a
business.
public hearing open.
That's right.
so, yeah.
The public hearing for the speed limit law is, no, I'm sorry, that's the village manager law. What do we think about closing this public hearing and adopting the law this evening? Does anyone want to do that, or would you prefer that we keep the public hearing open longer?
I think this one would be good to keep open a little bit longer,
Yes.
just based on,
Agreed.
yeah.
Have we received any additional comments or questions? No? Okay, well, I'm fine. Let's leave it open until the next meeting.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, and then for the business agenda, we have the resolution that we were just talking about with legislator Harmon. So this is, you know, exactly that, just asking the county to take a closer look at the next 5-year sales tax sharing agreement, which will start in 2026. So this is basically, you know, take a harder look at the potential to share based on population or to share based on assessed value where tax exempt property values are included. So I move that we go ahead and adopt this resolution.
Second,
All in favor?
I
Any further discussion, questions?
just wanted to note, in kind of drafting this, I looked back at emails between us, Tim, from 2016, from when I first like helped you research this issue, to make sure like we have all this stuff right, so, that was fun.
Yeah, we've been talking about this same topic for
For a
some
long time, yeah, so
Yeah.
let's hopefully make some moves on it.
Right. Okay, so the next item has to do with all in favor?
Aye.
The next
Aye.
item has to do with the resolution regarding records disposal, and this is basically just a green light the clerk to fulfill the clerk's office responsibilities in terms of go ahead and getting rid of old records in a legal way. So we have this resolution here. I wanted to, you know, the title of the resolution is the resolution of the Board of Trustees of the village allocating funds to compensate employees volunteering to discard village records. So one of the things that we've been challenged with is just, you know, getting folks to do this work. You know, our staff, you know, is busy during the day, and we've had instances where we've asked staff to come in and help outside of regular business hours. So this is basically just a formal way of greenlighting the staff so that they could be paid a total of $50 per hour when they're doing this work. And you know, it's not like hours and hours of work, but it's definitely, you know, a few hours of committed time that you know, it's not easy to get people to go ahead and commit to. So I just wanted to move that we adopt this resolution.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
And then we have the discussion of the village manager position. You know, we discussed this at the last meeting. The objective is to give the village an option to use a village manager in the future, if that seems to make sense, like if that would support the elected officials. I also feel like a municipal manager role could also be something that, you know, the town of New Paltz might consider at some point in the future. You know, this is not like an uncommon structure. I think what's really clear though is like you would not have a situation in our village, for instance, where you have a village mayor getting paid a full-time salary, and then you also have a full-time manager. That would be completely unnecessary and never anything that was ever considered. So I think, you know, some folks were confused that like adding a manager would just add this like giant new expense. You know, it would just be basically in lieu of paying a mayor, you know, a full-time amount to perform a lot of the administrative tasks that are necessary to run this village. So we're gonna bring that back onto the next board meeting. And then the fourth item here is just the an update, really nothing new from what we adopted at our last meeting, just a resolution to go ahead and pursue litigation. So, you know, there's the appellate division, which we are formally asking to weigh in, because we basically have a 1-to-1 tie vote. So we need a tiebreaker. to help the community, both the town board and the village board, consider whether or not to annex property into the village so that, the 4 years that we spent money on and paid village staff to perform a review of a project can move forward. And, this is a valuable housing project that, supports the university and supports our community. I think there's been some, incorrect information, where folks seem a little focused on the fact that indeed the property will be marketed to college students, but, that does not mean that other young adults or anyone could rent housing within this complex. Additionally, the project also has a 15% affordable housing threshold per the village's local law. So, comparing this to a dorm, I think is actually inaccurate. These are apartment style townhouses. It's very common for universities to have dorms on campus and this kind of additional type of townhouse living as an option, as well as, the ability for university students to go into the community and live off campus. So this is just like another style of housing that would be available for potentially college students who are town residents and therefore town taxpayers. So this litigation was something that we agreed to at our last resolution. Or at our last meeting by resolution? Do we have any questions from the board? No. And I think, what's unique about like what's going on too is that like I'm running for town supervisor. If I were to be elected town supervisor, then I would settle the litigation. So the idea that, there's this significant expense, and I know that the town board has like an expense of up to $16,000 to go towards this litigation, which I also think is curious considering that the amount of money that we pay attorneys for the entire year for the Village Zoning Board of Appeals is $6,000. For the entire year, our max budget at the planning board is $12,000. So I don't understand how a municipality would think that they're gonna get involved in this like ongoing fight. Which just, and also like I also just can't imagine that the courts wouldn't like look at exactly everything that has happened in terms of the process and like all I's were dotted and the entire thing is just a very head scratching experience for me in terms of the town's response to going ahead and just making sure that this important housing gets added within our community after, such a thorough and robust review process. Any comments from my colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, head scratching is one way to put it. It's just also just so interesting how much time from our amazing volunteers has gone into the process, as with all of these processes, like our, shout out to the planning board.
Yeah, we want to be very respectful and thankful for the work that they performed during their review.
This is.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's just a really bad precedent to set, to pit us against each other. It doesn't make sense that they did that. And so we had to do this so that, that wouldn't go unchallenged. And particularly, as you both said, because we have to honor the work, the 4 years of work that our volunteer planning board, that our neighbors have donated their time and labor for 4 years of really hard, diligent work that is, and I used to serve on the town planning board. It's pretty thankless. So, I wouldn't, I'm not okay with anybody disrespecting that in any way.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this will come out in a closer review, but a lot of the objections or concerns or questions that were outlined in the town's unilateral finding statement were already addressed in the environmental impact statement.
And though we don't think this is a perfect project, and some of us have major problems with some of the things that are going down with this project, we don't necessarily have the ability to dictate those things, some of them. And
Well, and that might be your personal opinion. I mean,
some of that
I
stuff,
don't know about any major problems that
right,
I'm aware of.
right. No, I'm saying individuals have serious issues with individual things about this project, right? So that can be true. And also, people can have the misconception that the village or the town can dictate certain things to projects that we can't. That's what I'm stating. And you know, I personally would like to see changes to the project. I'm sure everybody would like to tweak every project in all kinds of ways, you know, because they want it to fit whatever they want it to fit. But the bottom line is we have to only go by code that is already on the books. And we have to follow state law. So that's what we're doing. And we're asking them to cooperate and do it with us.
Yeah,
All right, let's move on to business agenda item number 5. So we were contacted by the Council for Westview Developers. They're representing, or those are the developers who want to construct a building at 151 North Chestnut. So they completed their secret review and then subsequently went to the county IDA to pursue a pilot. You know, our board has said that, you know, again, to use that silly phrase, it's a bit of a head scratcher in that, you know, why would a project need a pilot, this type of assistance from the IDA to get something built when you have other similarly large projects being constructed next door that don't have pilots? And then the village, or I'm sorry, the net zero project was built a couple of years ago without a pilot. And then the New Paltz apartment project has repeatedly said that they're not pursuing a pilot. So if there is a community host agreement to be discussed or a community developers agreement, and I use the phrase community host agreement because that's what the attorneys for the IDA, that's how they described it at first. But sure, if you look at the definitions of community host agreement versus community developers agreement, I think actually the CDA is the more appropriate phrase to use. So we can start using that exclusively if that makes things more clear for people. You know, during the presentation on Monday night that Legislator Harmon spoke about, where Legislator Harmon and Legislator Perry organized a discussion about pilots generally and then pilots to be used to support housing development. I have to say that I think Mark Gallagher did a great job. I think Hillary Nichols from the county IDA did a great job. And I told Hillary that the next day because we were discussing a few things, but I also told her that I disagree with her on a lot of the thesis that supports some who believe that a market rate housing project should end up with a pilot. I feel like there's strong cases to be made for different applicants who need a pilot for a business that's involved in job creation or even like retention for a business or expansion for a business. That stuff is pretty easy for different people to wrap their heads around. I also think like if it's crystal clear that there are direct community benefits, for instance, like, and this is not an IDA pilot, but it's a pilot that was negotiated with the local government where Harmony Hall is going to have 100% affordable housing units for qualifying seniors. You know, there's direct community benefit, right? They're going to pay less in taxes, but the people living there will benefit directly. So when a market rate project that's only, providing or like reaching for whatever the local statutes are. For instance, like in our situation, we have an affordable housing law because there are 20 more units, 15% of them have to be affordable, and they're simply building to that requirement. I think you'd be hard pressed to make an argument that it makes sense to provide a tax abatement, and that's my personal opinion. And one of the reasons why I feel like providing pilots for market rate projects is also challenging is because in our community, you know, we have a sizable amount of capacity at our sewer plant, and we have a sizable amount of capacity as far as providing drinking water. But I would be of the mindset to say we should reserve some of that finite capacity for projects that are not seeking a pilot. And I also feel like, you know, the argument that was structured during that presentation is that it's really expensive right now to build housing. Like the quote was, it costs $500,000 to build a 2-bedroom apartment. So, you know, we all know that there's a very significant affordability crisis. I don't believe that giving a developer a haircut on sales tax for construction materials and a haircut on mortgage recording tax, and then a tax abatement is going to then trickle down and benefit individuals in our community directly. Like that's it, like it seems like there's an indirect or trickle down economics argument being made here that we need housing, to support industry. And I feel like the jury is out as to, you know, whether that's a cogent argument. I feel like if there were very clear direct benefits for community members, then you could say, well, let's consider a pilot for a housing project. But, you know, this is just where my head's at. So, you know, we'll continue to, you know, if this developer wants to come to us and pitch us on the idea of a community developers agreement that would offset the fact that the community is not receiving, you know, because you also have to think about it too. And there's also like a terrible misconception by many in our community that a pilot means no taxes are paid. So some deviated pilots are structured that way, where, you know, you could have a 10-year, a 15-year, or 25 or 30-year pilot, and no taxes are paid for the term. But, you know, the UTEP pilots are all like scaled in. So like in year one, if it's a 10-year pilot, I think it's something like you pay 10% of the taxes due. In year two, you pay 20% of the taxes due. And then, you know, by the 10th and 11th year, you're paying the full amount. So it is incorrect when people say that pilots don't pay any taxes whatsoever. But it's still, I think, very important. So if you take a housing project and it gets built on day one, you know, they're going to have demands on services from day one. And I think that's where the community developers agreement could provide an offset to help while that pilot is, you know, ramping up back to full payment. So, and that was even discussed Monday night. And I thought what was curious in that discussion, it said that something like the community developers agreement could be negotiated and discussed during seeker. But we're not able to do that because, or our planning board's not able to do that because the seeker review happened before the pilot question was on anyone's radar, or anyone was under the impression that this developer was going to be seeking a pilot. And I actually feel like it makes sense that that question might not have even been asked, because we've had all these other housing projects that have not brought up pilots at all. So, you know, I feel like there has been some suggestions that the planning board should have asked whether or not, and I actually don't even think that the the team that was behind the development at that time was considering a pilot. I think what happened was some new investors came on board a little bit later, and those new investors, you know, they weren't trying to trick anyone. They were just like, well, why don't we go to the IDA and see if we can secure some assistance? You know, so one of the other assistance pieces would be, you know, the IDA can help developers go into the bond market and raise capital using tax exempt bonds. That doesn't impact us locally.
Yeah.
And the other thing, so it's like, if you want to go ahead and use that as a tool, probably go ahead. But I also feel like there's so many challenges in this community countywide where we have underserved populations. You know, I see it with our free food fridge. It's a very challenging situation, and that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
like, there are people in need in Ulster County, and when those needs are not being met, and then we're going to buy into this idea that we're going to, you know, prop up or provide a tailwind for a for-profit market rate housing developer, because we believe it's then gonna trickle down like, you know, Reaganomics-esque approach to how to develop or support economic development. I think it's a stretch. I think it's a giant leap of faith. And you know, also in our agenda here, we have, it's like, okay, we will entertain this conversation if you want to have a community developers agreement, but you know, we also are not doing this unilaterally. We're not going to do it as just a village. We want the town, county, and school district representatives to be comfortable and also on the same page in that, you know, anything is fairly and properly offsetting the pilot benefits that the applicant would be securing. And then a final piece to this, which, you know, again, because social media is like this monster that no one seems to be able to control. So this developer, you know, like so many of the other housing projects that are next to the rail trail, would just like a connection to the rail trail, which we think is a good thing. We want, you know, people in this community to have access to the rail trail. But to do that legally, it requires an easement extended from the village. And then we work with the Walker Valley Land Trust. That is the same type of agreement that, you know, exists at Zero Place and, you know, a couple of the other apartment complexes on North Chestnut, as well as the hotel on Water Street. Like, we want, you know, there's a trail conference next week in Kingston and discussing the benefits of trails for, you know, it's a greener way to live. It's better, you know, for your local economy. It's better for people's mental health. Like, we want projects to be near trails. But, you know, to dot that I and to sort that all out, you know, that is all like site plan discussion. And like, if we're gonna have this CDA agreement and this pilot agreement, or, you know, we're not even party to the pilot agreement stuff, but, you know, it's like, we're not gonna go ahead and move this easement regarding connection to the rail trail as like an administrative thing, because we still need to, you know, dot I's and send that documentation over to the land trust so that they can review it. Like, we're not gonna start and complete that process while we have some of these other questions unanswered. So
Yeah.
that's just like context, because, you know, people like, I try to steer clear of Facebook at this point, because it just seems like it's just where people guess and wonder and just make up terrible assumptions about, you know, the work that local government is involved in. But you know, the connection to the rail trail piece is just that. And it's like, you know, you have to dot I's, you have to have an agreement. It has to be, you know, run through the land trust. And that's all that is. So any other questions or comments about our next steps?
Yeah, I feel like you covered everything pretty well. Yeah. You definitely said my points about how it has to be all like the entities involved, so.
Yeah, right, the other
Yeah.
taxing jurisdictions, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so. Speed study update, so, you know, this is the draft law that we've circulated, we closed the public hearing at our last meeting. We've had some conversations with our attorney and, some internal conversations about e-bikes and, I've even spoken about this with some other enforcement people. I think the thing with e-bikes is they're basically just vehicles, right? So
Yes.
they would be subject to the same law.
scary.
We don't have to change this law. You know, to, you know, trucks, cars, anything that's motorized is a vehicle. So our law as written, you know, works pretty well. So any questions about the study? You know, we need the study to pair with the law. But I believe we're at the junction of simply just probably going ahead and adopting the law.
On the e-bikes thing, I just want to make sure we're being clear. I don't know how we say I guess we say that no vehicles are allowed on the trails and whatnot, so it would just be that.
This is not a law for the
That
trails,
people-
though.
I know, but people have been saying things about like the EST portion and things like that. I know we're talking about roads. I'm
We're
just
just talking about roads, you know, you're only allowed to have the, what are they, you know, like. Step one, or, you know, the most basic e-bike is allowed to be on the rail trail.
right.
So that's separate from, you know, this is a law for vehicles, which would include trucks, cars, and e-bikes. Human beings could technically
And
go
Vespas.
faster than 25 miles an hour if their human body can propel them greater than 25 miles an hour.
10 years ago.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Okay, I'm clear now. I just wanted to be clear because I know that, you know, when it comes to, you know, Henry W., the you know, Empire State
Yeah, the
Trail.
speed limit is 25 miles an hour
Cool.
on Henry W.
Yeah.
And the
I'm
speed limit is,
Well, I mean, I knew that. What I'm saying is that I know some people think that that e-bikes should go slower on something like that, but this doesn't pertain to that because it's not. Even though it's a road, I don't know. That one in particular.
well, those like whatever they're called, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it, like step one or
The levels,
the level e-bike, they generally don't go more than 20 miles an hour.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think you gotta be careful with those anyways, like 20 miles an hour where you're just pedaling in name only. It's
Yeah.
fast, that's,
Yeah.
you
Freaks
better
me
have
out.
some
The whole
bike
thing
handling
freaks me out,
skills.
I think, is that's the bottom line is the whole thing freaks me out with the e-bikes.
Yeah, but 20 miles an hour, I mean, you know, a cyclist on the rail trail. When they're going at a good pace, and hopefully they're being super mindful of pedestrians or anyone else, like, you know, they're going 16 miles an hour anyways.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
No
just-
speed
I
limits for
needed that.
trails.
Thank you.
If it's human power.
If it's no human powered speed limits.
Yeah, no, but you know what there needs to be though, is just a reminder that you have to be courteous and careful and aware and.
Yes. Obey traffic laws and all of that.
Well, not on trails, there's no traffic laws on trails.
Well, not on trails, but you know, I mean, you know, but courteous
Yeah.
everywhere.
Best practices.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that's the challenge with human beings, is I think 90% of them are
Yeah.
fairly courteous and careful, then you have like 10% madmen.
Yeah, the rest of us, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move that we adopt the law,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Hi.
So the next item is the 145 North Chestnut, they asked for an extension in terms of, and this is basically just, like when the building permit fees are due. You know, our director of planning and zoning was in support of going ahead and agreeing to this, because, you know, these are pretty significant fees, and, you know, providing them with a payment schedule seemed like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So I'm going
And
to,
I would
move
like-
that we adopt this. What?
Second it, I would like to just ask one thing.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, so you just seconded it, Donna, and what's your question?
All right, so the way the payment schedule is laid out, I'm just curious if they expect to finish before one or more payments are made, are we still guaranteed to get those payments?
Well, I don't think we do a C of O unless they're paid in full anyway, so.
Okay,
That's
I just
really
want to make sure that we
Karen
weren't
wants
saying
that.
that if it's done at this date, they can stop making, the further payments. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
the
just
full amount still do.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure it was explicit.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
And then I move the resolution for bills and claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh,
Then
aye.
we're not
On
gonna,
the last
we're
one.
not gonna do any liaison updates from planning board and zoning board. Anything else we want to discuss tonight?
But we didn't vote on the 145 extension. Did we?
We didn't call the question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I don't think there's anything else we need here.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night.
Good night.
Night,
Feel
everybody.
better, Sana.
Mwah.